Welcome back, lieutenants. It's NSA children. Not out of fear I defend the thin-skinned pansies that would complain about that, but I didn't feel like saying children. I felt like saying lieutenants. You want to know why? Because we're out in the field, lieutenants. We're in Nebraska, home to the world's crappiest drivers. They used to think it was Wisconsin, but then spent some time in Hot Springs, and the people who came up from Nebraska were absolutely horrible drivers. And they have proven to be so. Once I crossed into Nebraska from Iowa at Omaha. Everything ending with an A, oddly, in all three of those places' names. Anyway. Just trying to be like the locals. Anyway, we're on our way to Denver, kids, and I figured before the sun set down, I better do some work while I'm on the road and put together this video, because this is an important video. Not that the others I put together weren't important or didn't have some kind of point. And that is your credit score. Here's an interesting take on credit score. Everyone tells you, housing's the best investment. Housing only goes up. Everybody should go to college. And now you need to keep your credit score up. Well, here's an interesting thought, gentlemen and ladies. Why do you need good credit? What is the primary reason to have good credit? And you'll think long and hard, and the primary reason to have good credit is so someone will lend you money. They would say, okay, what are the two things I'm going to need in my life so that people will lend me money? And I'm not talking about college. Let's not talk about college, because the government will throw money at you. Because there's nothing is better than education. Education for the children's. Nothing's too good for the children, and too good means education and healthcare and money and food. There's absolutely nothing that. Oh, come on, let's go. Your car, rental car. All right, fine. See, I told you I had to change lanes. It's that bad. The two things you're going to get credit for, or loans for, is going to be a house and a car. And let's think about those two assets. One, do you even want to get a car or get a house? Given the financial risk of it basically becoming no longer an asset, but rather a liability because of property taxes constantly going up, local governments constantly having to pay for their pensions and the public employee pensions, unless of course you live in a very conservative town where it's Republicans all the time. If you look at housing as a purchase, you're going to realize what you're buying. Yes, it'll save you money on rent, but it is also a lifelong commitment, as long as you own that house, to pay the property taxes on it. So you can never really own your property. You rent it from the state, right? In this technicality, the municipality, the city. So you may not want to buy a house. In addition to the kind of lifestyle that a lot of the guys in the manosphere are advocating, unless you get married and have children, or have a really good stable job, a house is way too much of a risk. This is not 1947 where you can work reliably for 40, 50, 30 years and then afford a 40, 30, or not a 40, but a 25, 15, 30-year mortgage. So I don't even think a house is worth the risk. I think you anchor yourself down way too much. So most people today who are young should not be looking at houses. They really shouldn't be. Second thing, a car. What do I tell you boys and girls about cars, huh? I'm going to drink this and clear my throat. Excuse me, that's what got a cold. You think about it. You'll say, oh, you know what? I know what the captain told us about cars. They're the worst investment you could possibly make. Cars never go up in value. They only go down in value. And you should always purchase your cars with cash. You should learn by the time you graduate from high school, you and your dad, or you yourself, because I know a lot of dads are absent, either unintentionally or intentionally. I understand the county might be keeping them away. You have to go on YouTube and learn how to fix cars yourself. That means you don't have to borrow money. To this day, I don't think I've dropped, the most I ever dropped on a car was, I think, $6,000, and I paid cash for it. All my cars I've paid cash, but I think the second most expensive car I ever bought was like $3,500. you never buy a car. You never buy a car brand new, and you never borrow money to pay for a car. Never. So with those two major things out of the way, why would you need money? Why would you ever need to borrow money? Now, I understand if you're a chick and you got a credit card, you got to buy crap and fill up your apartment and your house with a bunch of worthless shit. Okay, I understand. But let's assume we're going to treat women as equals and assume you're going to be as financially savvy as men. Aside from a car and a house, you take those two things out, you should never have to borrow money. Never. Yes, conveniently to have a credit card that you pay off every month, but you should never have a credit card balance. You should never borrow money to have a car, and you should probably not even get a house. So this calls into question, what's the whole point and purpose of having a good credit score, worrying about your credit score, if you're never going to borrow money? This is very interesting. There is no reason to worry about your credit score. Now, you shouldn't have a credit score of like 400 where you've obviously defaulted on 18 credit cards and you're the typical American idiot. But I'm saying from a person who wishes to be financially savvy, someone who wishes to be on that frontier of financial and economic thought, if you're not going to make major purchases that require financing, requires you to borrow money, then there's really no reason for you to worry about your credit score. Now, going forward though, there are two warnings I'd want to give you. Well, one's a warning and one's an idea, but I'm not recommending it because it's just an interesting economic thought I had. The first warning is that employers and their progressive arrogance and snootiness, championed by the arrogant bitches that run the HR industry, forever trying to refine their checklists, are starting to look and require a credit check or a background check, a credit report check. I personally won't interview with HR, and secondly, I say, yeah, you first. I'll show you my credit report when you show me yours. I think it's an invasion of privacy, but that's where a lot of these companies are going to further weed you people out, because a master's isn't enough. Now you need to have perfect credit. So if you don't totally torch your credit or let it go, because that may adversely affect your employment prospects. Although I'd say if you don't want to work for anyone that's going to be saying, well, we need to look at your credit reports. No, screw you. The other thing is this. It provides an interesting solution to solve the student debt problem now, doesn't it? See, instead of coming up to me and blaming me, or not blaming me, but me, the taxpayer, and the other people who pay into the system and demanding that the government do something, which translation means take our money and bail your lazy asses out, just like the banksters. So aside from that, here's another idea. Well, bankruptcy allows you to forgive pretty much every kind of debt except for student loans. Well, what if you just borrow a ton of credit card debt, use it to pay off your student loans, and then default on your credit card debt? Your student loans to be paid off, they're not forgivable. But now the credit card debt that you got is forgivable. Now here's the problem. Bankruptcy law has gotten a little bit more complicated. And as I pointed out before, I was only pointing that out as an economic, interesting observation. I'm not recommending you do it, but I'm saying, I would love to have a bankruptcy lawyer contact me, someone with a little bit more not skin in the game, but a little bit more expertise. But as far as my knowledge goes, that's a way to get out of student loans, is to go and borrow a ton of other money, get lines of credit, get credit card debt. I mean, these credit card, hey, you want to stick it back to the banks? You want to stick it back to the banks? That'd be a way to do it. But of course, you probably end up bailing out the credit card companies anyway. After $1 trillion of student loan, we're paid off by $1 trillion of recently accrued credit card debt. So, anyway, that's all I'm pointing out. Just pointing that out. Maybe very interesting down the road. Maybe an option for you, but definitely, don't talk to a bankruptcy attorney before you think of anything so brash. So hopefully we learned something today. Don't worry too much about your credit score. If you're not going to borrow a car, if you're not going to borrow money to pay for a car, or you're not going to get a house, and for God's sake, don't get credit card debt. You only just cash, people. Don't dare. One of the best videos I ever made. It was the shortest one in the world. Spend less than you make. That's it. That's all we got. Toodles.